Welcome to Stitches in Time, the podcast discussing Doctor Who the way it was meant to be watched, in chronological order, one clip at a time, starting at the Big Bang and ending with the heat death of the universe. I'm Becca, the Matrix Archivist, and I spent the last 12 years of my life meticulously editing the entire televised Doctor Who universe into chronological order.
I'm Mandy, and as a former Catholic, I too understand that sometimes my old God is just some guy who wants to prey on children.
Oh my god. That's it. That's the episode. We did it. We did it. Mandy,
We're gonna get people defending the Rings of Akhaten purely to be angry at me. The Catholic Church is gonna come out in support of this bad episode of Doctor Who.
Please send...
They're gonna have a whole conclave about it.
Please send all of your complaints to Elon Musk at Tesla.com.
Please send your comments in the form of a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts.
Oh my gosh. And also joining us today is a niche author of such things as a Faction Paradox short story and a queer community leader as Mr. San Diego Leather 2025. He's fairly sure that those two things have never gone together before or since and apologizes for the confusion. Please welcome to the podcast, Kevin Burnard.
Well, hello. I see we've staked out a position very early on the Rings of Akhaten, haven't we?
I'm a little... I'm a little upset, Kevin, that you're not wearing any leather that I can see. I'm going to expose you now. I was really looking forward to the background sound of just leather rubbing together throughout the podcast. I wanted some fancy ASMR.
Neckerchief. Okay.
This is an audio podcast, and yet I will roast you anyway.
There, the nearest leather thing I could find. Good. A hat would be funnier, but I don't want to find it.
I mean, the fact that you could immediately grab something and prove me wrong
pretty amazing.
Does make you Mr. San Diego Leather.
This is all, for those who are not watching the video portion of this podcast, this has all been stuff that Kevin has done without getting up from his computer.
If it's any comfort, my room is not very big, so I can just, it's right there.
Fair.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Amazing. We're talking about the Rings of Akhaten today. And we're only talking about 35 minutes of it, but it is like the main part of the episode that we're talking about, which is a departure from the last several episodes where it's just been a minute here and there. So it's actually nice to be able to talk about an actual full story.
Can you feel the light on your eyelids? Mm-hmm. That is the light of an alien sun.
Minus a bunch of flashbacks that have to do with Clara's parents.
Yes, I did have a question about that, actually. I just need to pinpoint exactly how deranged we are today, because... I watched the first 30 minutes or so on your edit, but then when it skipped over to the next hour, sharing permissions were being weird, so I just finished it on the BBC edit. I just need to know, when Clara gives her big speech to the planet that looks like a sun, are the flashbacks of her childhood in your edit?
They are, but they're in the 90s.
Okay, good. So we just skip over a couple bits there. I just needed to know.
Yeah.
What I saw as a purist, as a Stitches in Time purist, was Clara talking and just kind of doing like a little stutter and a head jerk sometimes as she was talking, which was clearly a clip in between that I didn't get to see. And so it's just her holding up a leaf and going, "This is a cool leaf. Don't you want my leaf?"
Where did the leaf come from?
The leaf!
Because we are watching this in the correct order, I just have to ask, where did the leaf come from?
Now I understand why Mandy does not like this episode.
We've got this beautiful woman just strolling out to talk to a planet being like, hey dude, I know you just like tried to eat my friend, but I have a leaf.
Well, I brought something for you. This. The most important leaf in human history.
And I gotta say, we're really skipping it. Like, we'll get to actually explaining what this episode is. But it is Clara comes out and she has a book. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. This is like the child of story. You have made a whole connection between story and souls. So you're going to read a story, and that's going to be what sates the old god. No, my leaf that I have just been pressed into the book was what will sate it. It's like, there's words in there, Clara, read them.
Well, how do you know she didn't and that's just what got cut?
Maybe, you know what? My new headcanon now is that the entire monologue about the leaf that seems to just roll right out of her head in the episode, that's all written down in the book. That's what the book says, is just that monologue written out.
So it's a special leaf pressing book, like for people. Like, I was definitely a person growing up that like pressing like flowers and stuff into books. But like sometimes it'll stain the book a bit, so you got to be careful what book you pick. So I guess this is a special leaf pressing book, and then every page about it just tells you factoids about leaf pressing.
Now, speaking of factoids about leaf pressing, if I remember correctly from the BBC order and various other details, that leaf does appear in one other episode in which they use a completely different leaf.
Does it?
If I remember right, it's a different kind of leaf.
It might be. That might be true. I don't remember the leaf popping up again. I know that they...
No, before... Oh, actually, it pops up twice, doesn't it? Once before, once after.
I mean,
the beginning of this episode in the BBC edit is the whole leaf thing.
Oh, yes, right. So you're going to get like 4 episodes about the leaf.
Yeah.
And this is where we get to meet it.
See, I
getting blown up in sparkles.
I have to assume kind of like in the edit, 'cause I think the last time we saw Clara, she was like in the desert. She was like stuck in the desert.
She and Peter Capaldi were tied to pylons in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, so I have to assume that that's where that leaf comes from. And it doesn't make sense that that leaf, that doesn't really seem like a desert leaf, but I don't know enough about plants to argue against it.
Well, that's why it's so dried out.
It was a desert leaf.
Checks out. Science, everybody. Science. All right, so first of all, I have to issue a correction because I did watch the BBC edit of this episode, and in an episode of the podcast, like very recently, I mistakenly attributed a quote about what's time made of, is it strawberry jam? I thought that was Bill Potts. Nope, it's Clara. It's Clara at the beginning of this episode. She doesn't say it in this part of the edit, but...
The same guy wrote it. The same guy wrote it in the mouth of different women. You just confirmed, you just were mistaken on which woman he wrote it.
Which also, to be fair, I feel like Stephen Moffat also can't really tell the women that he creates apart from each other.
To be fair, this one isn't Stephen Moffat. It's Neil Cross, who writes 2 episodes about Clara and writes her completely differently from anybody before or since.
Yeah.
The one that always catches me is when she's like,
oh my stars.
Oh my stars. And I'm like, what is that? What is that?
Well, so that comes from, again, in the BBC edit, her mom says, oh my stars, twice in the setup of this episode throughout her childhood. So but now
our boy Neil set up a character thing, and it was like, oh yeah, I'm going to make it a character thing. We're going to establish that it's something that she got from her mother. And then they were like, never again. She's never going to say that ever. We're ditching that. That's stupid. What are you doing, Neil?
Oh, I think I figured it out. At the end, I mean, the doctor, when he's talking to the big thing, is like, take my memories, right? So she's like, the leaf is her, like, thing with her parents. She's forgotten her mother said, oh my stars,
oh my
by
God.
sacrificing the leaf.
That's my new headcanon right there. Oh my God. That's amazing. I love that. Yeah, I did just Google it just in case. Oh my stars does not appear in any other episode. I just wanted to make like extra sure about that.
It's Oh My Lanta from now on.
I mean, look, an episode about her losing her own memories of her parents is so much better than the alternative, which currently is just like, and she never thought about her parents ever again. Like, even the only other time we like see her family is in the time of the Doctor when she's having like Christmas. But I don't think her dad's in that, and her mom's already dead, so whatever.
Her dad is in that, but also her grandma shows up for one whole scene in Series 8.
Wait, does she? Which one? What?
Dark Water.
Oh my gosh.
It's like after...
I forgot about that.
Massive spoilers from a time leap. There's something with a guy named Danny. You'll get to that in probably a couple years of the podcast.
I mean, does he ever go into the past? I think a couple years is 17 years from now, when school exists.
Yeah, once human beings invent school, then it's only a matter of time.
Once we invent primary education.
Yeah.
And Danny's.
So, yes, we are in 4462 BC right now, of course.
Of course.
Another random number generated thing.
Somehow this one just makes sense in the past, though. Like, it's going for the whole, like... I want to say basically it's Orientalism. It's like going for old world, like Egyptian aesthetics, even though nobody looks like it. Yeah,
there's kind of an outdoor market. It's kind of hard to tell if it's an outdoor market, but it feels like an outdoor market.
Can't pay for that.
Where are they from?
Oh, the local system, mostly.
And what do I call them?
Well, let's see.
The direction isn't good here, is it? It's really unclear.
They
it's
do
just like,
have
nobody knows
a
what time
moped,
of day it is.
So they're somewhat advanced. I think a lot of this episode is based in kind of religion, and that does give it a kind of like past of like, oh, look at these people. They believe
sort of
that like that this one
energy.
pyramid over here, that's where God is. We gotta have this girl do a song at it. I know that we want to talk about the song, so there's a song in here.
They're singing to the mummy in the temple. They call it the old god. Sometimes grandfather.
And I can really probably understand the struggle of like, because typically in kind of like a sci-fi show, if you want to just do a song, you don't need to write lyrics for it. You just have them like do gibberish and you say that that's an alien language. But you can't do that in Doctor Who because the TARDIS translates everything. So and maybe the TARDIS just translated bad, and that's why the song is bad. But the song is just Akhaten, be sleep now, Akhaten.
Actually, I will say, they literally have an alien in this that doesn't get translated, so they could have cheated and didn't.
That is true. There's that alien who just barks at Clara and...
Doctor?
Matt Smith.
Oh, that alien is speaking English, but is doing woof woof and is just really good at it.
He's speaking English, but English isn't his native language, so, like, He's speaking like a foreign...
Well, now I
thought he was
understand
just
what's
in a
going
pet
on
play.
because... Yeah, I was going to say, this is puppy play.
Oh,
this is puppy play before
okay.
humans got around to it.
Yeah. That's why, like, when Clara barks back, he's just really into it, because he's like, yeah, we're doggies.
Clara's having an awakening here, too, I think. I do want to say, I think the lyrics are even worse than you remember, because you're just saying it's Akhaten, Akhaten, Akhaten. Actually, it's rest now, wake up.
Well, there's the guy like, who's rest now, wake up, and then the little girl is just like Akhaten,
yeah,
Akhaten.
But like, it's just always bugged me because we're singing to this thing. Rest now, you need to sleep. Also, wake up. Which one? Which one? It should not be hard to pick one for a song.
If I may make a reference. There's a similar thing in the original Lupin the Third. Like, everyone has an idea of, like, kind of the music of Lupin the Third, which is entirely from Part 2 and has, like, great, fantastic score. That's not the score that I think of personally of Lupin the Third. The score that they made for this first series that ran in the 70s, which all of the theme music just sounds like they trapped a guy in a room and said, you gotta make some music about Lupin the Third. And so the music goes, Lupin the Third, Lupin the Third, dun dun, na 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 na. Lupin the Third. And then the ending theme is, Lupin the Third, he's a cool guy, but he's cruel. He uses his Walther. Bang, bang, the machine cries. It is entirely in English.
That's some anime bullshit right there. Yeah, that checks out. It's kind of like how the Doctor Who theme song is just Doctor Who, Doctor Who. Oh my gosh, Doctor Who. Are those the lyrics? Am I saying that right? Have I just invented lyrics every time I've heard the song? I'm pretty sure that's what I'm hearing, though.
You forgot the...
Yeah, that thing.
Yeah.
So we've safely established a better song than what we just got. Actually, speaking of the song, there's one other thing I just need to mention, since we're already not caring much about the chronology of events in this anyway.
Sure.
There's that moment where the Doctor's giving his speech, and it's very powerful, and then he just sort of collapses like he's dying. And then we cut to the beaming face of a singing child going, wake up. I'm like, she looks almost pleased with herself. Like, what does she know? What has she done to him?
Oh my gosh. Is she the old god? She was the old god all along. Plot twist.
I do like that their old god is a jack-o'-lantern. Their old god is a jack-o'-lantern. At first they think... At first they think the old god is a guy in a cage, and he was like, no, that's just the alarm clock guy. He's not God. The sun is God, but specifically the jack-o'-lantern face is God.
So the thing that's something I wanted to say is people always say it's a sun. The dialogue very specifically says planet, but also the dialogue very specifically at the start says, feel the light, that's an alien sun, and then never shows us the actual sun. But very explicitly, that's the planet that they're orbiting.
It's very confusing.
I think the direction really let it down.
We've talked about how the Doctor maybe doesn't know years or chronology. The Doctor doesn't know time. I think the Doctor may also not know space.
That's a big thing. It's probably a planet, or a sun, or a quasar, or a supernova, or a jack-o'-lantern.
That's one of them light moons. It's definitely not an egg this time.
Maybe it's the Castrovolva.
He does listen to our podcast. Validation.
No, we've done the Castrovolva. We know we're in our next arc, and our next arc might be bad music. I don't know what it's gonna be. I mean, we have had more music in this arc than we have had in our during the Castrovolva arc.
True.
Oh, I look forward to hearing the conclusion.
And I've also, so here's another thing. I don't know how you feel about, well, I think I know how you feel about this, Mandy, because you've expressed your opinions of this song. But, right now, in year 1 of Stitches in Time, the podcast, I'm using My Angel Put the Devil in Me from everybody's favorite story, Daleks in Manhattan. Just a true fan favorite, no issues. And I'm like, maybe I'm going to switch up. I've had this idea to switch it up every year with a different song. And this is a contender.
Can I submit another contender? And it is my recreation of the song that we heard in this episode.
Yeah, you know what? Yes.
Yeah,
that's it.
Can we get an EDM remix?
I can do anything, and I will do most things. See, and this is something that you have to be very careful with me, Mandy, about making me commit to things, because I will spend 12 years on a stupid project for no reason. Like, I will just do that because I said I would, or I thought it would be funny, or a pretty girl asked me to. Those, I'll do anything at all. I'm a problem.
And all of those things have happened. We've hit the trifecta.
Fuck. All right.
You said it. You said you would. It would be funny, and a pretty Mandy asked you to.
Yeah. You know what? We did it. We hit it. So now I'm contractually obligated.
See you in 12 years.
To 12 years.
I'm excited to know what your gender will be after that.
Every one of these projects I end up doing I'm gonna just turn out a different gender on the other side. I think what's gonna happen, this will be 12 years from now, so that'll be year 13 of the Stitches in Time podcast. If we make it that long, Mandy, I will absolutely do an EDM version of you singing the Rings of Akhaten song as our theme music for a whole year. This is my commitment to you. And listeners, if you're listening to this in the year of our Lord 2038 or approaching that, please send me a reminder in the form of a 5-star review that I made this promise on this episode. Really fucking ruined my life.
Oh, Becca. In 2038, we'll be in jail.
True. For all of our gender crimes. Oh, goodness. So I do want to talk a little bit about the aliens in the marketplace, because I did look them up, and there's Pan-Babylonians, of course there's a Luga-Lyrakush, some Ukanians, a Huluvu, an Ultramanta, and the dog barking guy is a Terra Berserker of the Cadonian Belt. So most, if not all, of these aliens appear either before or after this in such locales as the museum in Nightmare in Silver, which is just a couple episodes after this in the BBC order. One of them appears in a Dorian Maldivar's place at some point, and then one of them is in the bar at the end of time where David Tennant is like, hey, Jack Harkness and Alfonso, the first mate from the Titanic, y'all should hook up.
That makes sense in terms of like makeup costuming department constraints of we gotta reuse these. This costs money. What else can we use these guys? Or else we have to make new guys. Yeah. But I don't know where the Ultramans come from. The Ultramantas. Mm-hmm. They're the Ultramans. You can feel the person looking at, like, I'm just gonna find a name of things. So we got Ultramans. I do remember that we have the Pan ones. Like, I do recall those because we had Amy and Rory previously. So the pansexuals.
Yeah. So I did just Google the name I always thought was the best one, the Hulavu. And according to the Doctor Who wiki, the Hulavu are a super intelligent shade of the color blue in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I do slightly remember that.
So the best name of them was stolen.
Was it stolen, or was it just... Were they just like, you know what? Douglas Adams wrote for Doctor Who, therefore, all of his IP is kind of canonically in Doctor Who?
I feel like it's going to be one of those, like, rats kind of issues where it's like, oh, no, you made these on company time, so we own the Hulavu, actually.
Kevin, I'm only going to edit it in if they make a good screen adaptation of Hitchhiker's Guide.
Oh. Yeah, there's the challenge.
Listeners, if you're listening to this in the 2030s and want to remind me that I made this promise, don't, because I'm not going to commit that hard to the bit.
Be prettier and then ask.
Oh my god. Okay, the other thing I have to ask about this episode, first of all, I'd say on the whole, I really like this episode. I think it's the best episode in Series 7. That's not necessarily a very high bar for it to clear, but...
I gotta say, because, like, I know that I have watched this before. I have no memory of it whatsoever, and it doesn't, like, at first I was, like, kind of into it. I think the singing definitely brought things down a lot, and it seemed kind of off. And then when I told Ben which one I was watching, they apologized to me. So I was under the impression that this was not a popular episode.
Oh.
My feeling...
I have no idea.
With the episode is people either think this is one of the best episodes of the show, or at the very least of the era, or they hate it to bits. I think both are wrong.
This is also of the era that, like, it doesn't surprise me once I saw, like, I'm not a big fan of Matt Smith and Clara together. Like, it's not, like, this was kind of the era that I was leaving Doctor Who.
Yeah.
So I was not having a good time during this. I think the actual thing, as I saw it, was fine now. Watching in the clip, but I wasn't super surprised. I realized watching this, now that I have actually watched more classic Doctor Who, Matt Smith really gives the first Doctor. Like, that's the vibe that he's bringing, is like, I'm a young guy, but I'm really acting like a senile old man at all times.
You know, I feel like that's very second Doctor, actually.
Mentioning the BBC Order First Doctor does remind me of another observation I wanted to run by you, possibly another conspiracy theory. So at the start of this clip, in the Stitches edit, the correct edit, the Doctor mentions his granddaughter. We then transition to calling the old god grandfather a lot. So we have a story about two grandfathers, sort of with weird,
it's a pappy fight. Pappy fight.
Basically, I need to ask, did he eat Susan or try to?
That's the real reason that he had to abandon her, like, in the post-apocalypse of, like, you're too yummy.
I remember something very distinctly about you guys talking a lot about the Doctor trying to eat fish. And if there's one thing I remember about Susan's final story, it is that she falls in love by hitting somebody with a fish. I don't know what that coincidence means, but it means something.
That's very interesting. I'm stuck on the part that not only does this episode feature puppy play, but also pappy play. It's like, okay, there's maybe that's on purpose.
If we're just gonna bring the tone down completely, I have been haunted for years by Matt Smith's speech when in a big roaring voice he says, "Eaten out."
Oh, Kevin,
why were those words there?
Which of the Doctors do you most want to give a blowjob to?
They have taken that audio, right? And they've just made like a weird like sexual fan mix, and it was like, eat it. It's real big because I'm old.
There's that line where he's like, I've seen bigger. Really? Are you kidding? It's massive.
Yeah, you could really just do a fan edit of this episode and just like turn it into a porno. It's pretty amazing.
Oh, more pornos should be musicals. That's clearly the lesson here.
Oh, I could not agree with you more. And fewer musicals should be Emilia Perez.
Okay, so Becca,
Mandy, did you hate the song because you saw Emilia Perez recently and you were just like, no, all musicals are the worst. I'm done forever. If I hear another song in a film or TV medium, I'm going to lose my shit.
Yeah, I actually just hate music with a passion.
Oh.
I decided after watching Emilia Perez that I am done with music.
You know what? That makes sense. That tracks a lot.
I do have to ask Becca, as a person who has made songs, has written music, has done lyrics, what are your thoughts on the music here? Do you think that there is something that could be done with it to make it maybe more palatable?
Honestly, okay. I really like the music in this episode. But like, because specifically I think it does a good job of telling the story. Like, it's not supposed to be like a catchy Chapel Roan song. It's supposed to be
it's
like
supposed to be like a
hymn.
like a chant. Yeah, like a hymn.
But they could put the chapel in Chapel Roan here.
Yeah, and I like in fair like I made the bit of I'm
sorry, I just have I just have this image of this poor little like castrati in like a massive cathedral in England just going, pink pony club, I'm gonna keep on dancing at the pink pony club. Or that, but in Latin.
That is kind of like, to me, that's the thing that I think if the song had been in Latin, I would have vibed with it more. I really think that the TARDIS translation creates issues when it comes to the song. And if the song were just in Latin or just in an alien language, we would vibe with the song more because we wouldn't be able to actually understand it. I have the same feeling to people who are anime fans who are like subs, not dubs. I think the reason why people are into subs and not dubs, because like nowadays, like there had been like a fair complaint of like, oh, they change a lot in dubs and they do stuff, but like dubs now tend to be very faithful and you get decent actors doing it. That's not the issue. The issue is that hearing what people talk about in your own language reminds you that you're watching a show for children, and you don't like recognizing that you're watching a show for children. And that's why people like subtitles, that creates a layer of distance between you and the words that they're saying.
Yeah, there's an imagined sophistication when you're like, oh, I'm watching someone talk Japanese at me. Yeah, it's okay.
The same reason why my mom really likes old Catholic Mass that was in Latin, and also she doesn't know anything about Catholicism. It just seems really good vibes when they're in Latin.
I mean, look, I was a choir kid. I'm going to put it out there. I was a choir kid. Literally the only reason that I ever went to church as a kid, well, it was because my parents made me, because that's the only reason any children go to church. But, like, the only thing that, like, made me, like, that engaged me at all about going to church was singing in the choir. And because I had a very good choir director who, like, was just very interested in making the choir the best it could be, so I got, like, a lot of free voice lessons and, like, music theory training and sight singing and all this, so, like, now I can do all this shit, ha 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 ha. But, like, you know, so I also have, like, this kind of litany of sacred music that is in my brain, and, like, I don't know, you listen to something like the fucking Messiah, which is, you know, arguably the most popular sacred music of all time. Okay, so actually I started reading this book recently about the Messiah, about the composition of that piece of music, and the guy who wrote it is not an English speaker, even though the lyrics are in English. And first of all, every movement of the Messiah is just like, here's this passage from not even necessarily the Bible, although a lot of people think, oh, these are passages from the Bible. No, a lot of them are just like weird notes that random people in history made. But like, for example, you know, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. The hallelujah chorus is just hallelujah over and over again, and then every so often though they go, for the Lord God omnipotent reigneth. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. For the Lord, you know, it's not like lyrically diverse, you know, it's just, hey, we're repeating this, hey, God of Akhaten, wake up, go to sleep, don't think about it too hard. You know,
it's no hallelujah from the soundtrack of Shrek.
Exactly. Exactly.
So personally, my experience with church was I went because I got a donut at the end.
Ooh. Now, I also got donuts at the end.
Yeah. Yes.
I got cookies at the end. My church sucked.
Maybe if they had promised Mary Galel a donut at the end of being sacrificed, she would have been fine.
They probably couldn't afford to give her a donut, though, because I bet the old god ate all the donuts because he's so hungry.
Yeah, Clara should have just been sitting there and be like, you know what got me through this as a kid? I got donuts. Do you want a donut? Go sing and then we'll go get donuts.
I will say and this could be something of like the rest of the episode could establish it, but I don't think so based off of like we got a significant chunk of episode here. It seems like this episode really wants to kind of establish like the entire world, their form of commerce is story. Like when they're trying to rent a moped, they need something of like significance to give. And It seems a little weird that at the end it's like, well, we're just gonna eat you, girl. We're gonna we're talking about story, but we're just going to eat you.
Well, maybe because he says the whole economy is based on like items with sentimental value. And maybe because Mary Galel,
my bones have sentimental value.
Well, maybe because she's such a nice, kind little girl, she has more sentimental value than she would if she were like a mean kid who like burns ants on an anthill with a magnifying glass.
What's the exchange rate for this, though? Like, in order to just rent a moped, which shouldn't be that expensive, Clara has to give the only thing she has left of her mom. Like, shouldn't she at least get some change for that? Like,
yeah,
she should be able to buy a few other things for that.
I feel like they really wanted it to be a moment of, like, oh, the doctor doesn't carry anything of significance, even though the doctor's been around for so long. He doesn't have anything. But, like, you fucking asshole, she has to give her ring away so you can rent a moped? Give
right,
your
take the bow tie off. The bow tie
has
meaning.
a story.
Yeah. Okay, I also have this question, because, so, if the economy is based on sentimental value, like, the thing that you're giving, like, Clara's ring, given to the moped salesman, loses all sentimental value as soon as the moped guy owns it.
Yeah, he has to go, on an important adventure with the ring in order to bring the value back up.
He has to burn it in the fires of Mount Doom, yeah.
So that's why it looks like a jack-o'-lantern. It's the Eye of Sauron, but with an extra eye and a mouth.
Oh, it's the face of Sauron.
That's where the eyes are like empty sockets. There's another Eye of Sauron somewhere that got plucked out of the other eye.
Okay, so here's the other way that this could work, is, which it seems to be implied that, like, okay, sentimentality equals, like, some kind of psychic energy that is charged into physical objects. So, what I'm assuming is that, like, Clara's mother's ring is, like, okay, even if she doesn't own it anymore, it's still charged with that thing and can be used, therefore, by moped salesmen as currency to buy other things. But then I'm also like, is that the moped that, like, killed his twin brother in, like, a drag race accident that, like,
yeah, like, that is what is the emotional significance of, is it past significance, or is it, like, the future things of, like, well, you're really gonna enjoy this moped ride. Yeah. You're going to enjoy it as much as you enjoyed your mother.
This moped.
Well, wait. Let me. If it was based on future value, then it'd be worth like $1 bajillion, because Clara, like, hacks away an old god's brain by saying the future importance is worth more. So, like, Clara just found out how to be a billionaire in this economy.
That's actually brilliant.
That moped salesman is actually the richest person in this place, because I'm telling you, the potential to ride a moped.
Well, except
but he has to break the moped first so that it can't bring those memories. It's the ones that could have been. It's
the this moped represents my lifelong dream since I was a child to open a moped rental kiosk on the Rings of Akhaten.
And every time you rent a moped, because then you're adding in the experience of you on the moped, so the moped gets more expensive because it's charged with that energy of the last person who really enjoyed the moped.
So really, they should be charging people to use it.
The inflation of this economy is just out of control, because, like, everything you get, like, you know, now that Clara's mom's ring is not only, like, charged with her whole memories of her mom and everything, but, like, what if then that guy, like, uses it to, like, propose to his girlfriend or whatever, like, and then it becomes even more, and it just, like, that's the
and that girlfriend says no, and then they pawn the ring.
But that's still a story. That's still got weight.
Yeah.
It's still more
I think
expensive.
that's what actually the old god is the hero of this story, because he's preventing runaway inflation from destroying this entire civilization.
So basically he's the trash compactor, yeah.
Yeah, all the energy goes into this girl, and he goes, nom, 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 and that just, like, it's good for the economy.
Yeah.
Actually, given the way our government likes to sacrifice people for the economy too, it makes sense.
It's true.
Oh, I have a question.
Please.
What does make parasite gods blaze mean? In his big speech, he's like,
knowledge that must never be spoken. Knowledge that will make parasite gods blaze.
Is that implying the more knowledge it gets, the more it glows? Because it was glowing already. This speech is held up as like one of the greatest acting moments of Matt Smith in Doctor Who. And he's acting, but I don't understand it.
Yeah, I've never heard blaze used as a verb like that.
The information that I have is so dope that you have to smoke 12 doobies. 420 blazing. God.
Was it like 50% of communication is like nonverbal, like 30% is the way you say something, and only the last 20% is the words you're actually saying. So like he's just, the reason it's such a great acting moment is because it doesn't need to make sense. He could be performing this in Simlish for all we know. It would still be the greatest performance ever in the history of anything.
I would argue that if he were doing it in Simlish, it would be better. To what I was saying, again with the song, if the song would have been better in Latin, I think this entire episode would be better in Simlish. It would be so good if I just saw them acting and didn't have to listen to what they were saying.
Okay, great.
I'm sorry, Neil. I'm sure it just didn't come across. I'm sorry, Neil. I don't like knowing the names of the people who made the thing that I'm insulting. Neil, you worked hard. You've done a more talented thing than I have ever done in my entire life. Good job, Neil.
You're going to make Neil cross. You're going to make Neil cross.
Neil, you were the second worst writer named Neil to write an 11th Doctor story.
Oh, gosh. Oh, no.
I'm so sorry.
Neil, oh, I hope that you do not have to get written up in the Hollywood Reporter.
Oh, my God. I think this is honestly, like, this is one of the reasons is my favorite, like, Series 7 episode is because I think it is, like, Matt Smith and Clara at their best, like, together, and it's kind of the only time we really get to see them as a team before he decides I don't trust her.
I can see that. I think that, like, it felt a little too on the nose almost. Like, I don't, like, again, I'm not watching this in the Stitches edit versus the BBC edit. I don't know where we are, but I have to presume, given that we're kind of introducing the idea of, like, we're going to space now. Isn't this cool that this has to be kind of an early...
Yeah, so this is also something I wrote down. So this is Clara's first trip in the TARDIS.
Yeah, so it's a lot of, like, introducing stuff, which I think is fair, but in terms of it, for me, it always feels a little forced. Of the, like, oh, we have to introduce the Doctor's a hero. Sure.
It's very much, as I wrote this down, that, like, so it's Clara's first trip in the TARDIS, but it's so reminiscent. The marketplace of aliens is so reminiscent of the end of the world, of just like, let's just throw all of our costume and prosthetics budget at this. And then also with the crying child, it's such a Beast Below moment as well, of like Amy being like, oh wait, there are crying children.
Has anyone ever seen Cassandra and the old god in the same room?
All right, new maybe grandfather is just Cassandra with the skin taken off.
I was thinking the opposite of, like, when when the sun/planet gets a face, it's just because they've stretched Cassandra over it.
It does look in dire need of moisturization. They're like, here, take a story. And she's just like, no, give me some Olay Regenerist.
Just give me some fucking Aveeno.
If I'm upset about anything on this podcast, it's the fact that I basically will never get to see Cassandra in the actual timeline of this podcast.
Yeah, she shows up so late. She shows up in actually her first appearance is a couple of years before 5 billion AD because of the end.
She done be a lady before she skin.
Yeah. But yeah, that's gonna be, I mean, we will be almost done with this podcast by the time that happens.
We will be almost dead.
It will be the end of the world by that point.
Oh. I hope when we do our podcast episode on the end of the world, it's on the last day that the world exists. Is when it drops.
I hope we last that long.
I'm certainly taking the Kool-Aid with the understanding that that's what's happening.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening to our suicide pact. Kevin, because I feel like we talked about how this is a divisive episode amongst fans, but I don't feel like we talked about like your actual opinion of this episode as a whole.
So first I just have to say the first time I ever saw this episode, my family had a massive blowout fight in the middle of it, so I watched it in 2 chunks. So Stitches in Time feels like the correct way to watch this. This is not an episode that should be watched in one go. It's just not made for it. But I feel divided on this one. I think there's some scenes I really like. I like the way it's really focused on trying to establish Clara. I like the way that she sort of swoops in at the end. I think the initial monsters, the where are you things, I think they're scary. But I think this is possibly the most ADHD Doctor Who episode of the modern series. It'll introduce an idea, focus on it for like 2 minutes, and then throw it away and say, next idea!
It keeps throwing things. Like, yeah. I feel like you don't need to give me one guy and go, that's not the god, this other one's the god.
Yeah. And the one that really gets me is the guy who's just like, I am space name Namison. And the long song ended with me, goodbye, I'm no longer plot relevant, teleport. Like, people have asked for years about Mummy on the Orient Express. Who is Gus? I want to know who this guy is. He woke up a god to eat a child.
Yeah, that is true. That is extremely true.
But the thing, there's also good stuff in this.
The implications of I'm curious because it somewhat implies that this is a thing that happens regularly. It feels like they are regularly sacrificing the kind of queen and not telling anyone this. But one kind of the timing of it, of like, is there like a gap? Did this happen a lot sooner than we were expecting? Because it seems like if you're killing 6-year-olds on a regular basis, you're gonna run out of 6-year-olds pretty quickly.
Okay, well, I do want to make the argument they do say this happens roughly once every 1,000 years. So I don't think they're in any danger of
the
running
other
out
one
of
died of old age. I was kind of under the impression I missed that. I thought that it was happening of like, that's why the last one died, and they're happening regularly enough. And I was like, well, how old is the last one?
So every couple of years, they just yeet a 6-year-old into a planet.
Look, maybe it's not a 6-year-old every time. Maybe it's like, you know, it might have been like this woman was like 98 and then was like, it's happening in like 6 years. I feel like I should hang on so that we don't have to sacrifice a child. But
so she Ruth Bader Ginsburg'd it.
Yeah, she Ruth Bader Ginsburg'd it. She let us all fucking down like that bitch RBG.
You should have retired during Obama, and we wouldn't be in this mess.
Oh my god.
Also, I don't know if it's just because I've been watching a lot of Buffy and they do this constantly, but I think on this watch I finally realized this is a riff on, like, you go back to a primitive time and they're doing, like, virgin sacrifices, except this time the virgin's a literal child. And she's getting sacrificed through magic. But I was like, oh, we're doing that trope. Huh.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting that, like, the Doctor's solution to this problem isn't don't sacrifice the 6-year-old. It's, oh, here's something you can have instead of this particular 6-year-old. Continue with your society that has no problems whatsoever.
And it's like, it's kind of a mixed thing, because I feel like initially, like, the way that they kind of go from there's the guy in the cage to then the god and the Doctor is kind of like surprised by the fact. I think that he was expecting that it was just going to be the guy in the cage, and it would have been like the atheism reveal of like, your god is fake, it's just this vampire guy. But then the vampire guy is gone, and then they like, oh, there actually is a god, but nothing is given enough. Like, you've told me one thing, and then you do the mask reveal, but then scale up, and it's like, well, I haven't had time to really care about any of these factoids, so it's not really an escalation of stuff of like, it is a god, it's not a god, it is a god!
Also, the vampire guy kind of looks like poo.
Yes. Not the animated bear either.
Don't understand. He like sucked Clara. I don't know if he sucked Clara into the wall or he sucked Clara. I hear it now. I hear it now.
Eaten out.
Mandy, I know I'm on the asexuality spectrum, but even I heard it. Okay.
I hear it now. But Clara got like stuck on the wall. I'm not sure if the girl stuck her on the wall or the vampire stuck her on the wall. I don't know what that was about and what the plan was from there. It is just a lot of things.
Yeah.
I do have to say, going back to the Doctor ate Susan theory. Very important. So the grandfather appears to initially be this dude who hangs out in a tiny box, right? But he's actually got access to this much bigger, vast space.
Yeah, with a machine that serves milk, where we never answer what was being milked.
Yeah. Is there somewhere in that temple? Is there somewhere in that temple where one of the choristers every day has to just press a water button or a milk button, and it just feeds it to an IV to grandfather in that fucking box? Oh my god.
Someone on BlueSky described this episode to me today as going through a succession of monsters where each one is worse than the previous one.
I just want a story on a moped. They gave me so much promise of like, this is going to be one pricey moped given by the puppy play guy. Puppy play guy and his moped. Give me just an episode on that. Big finish. That's what I want. I want adventures of this guy.
Now, I do have to correct, I keep putting it off. Her name is Doreen.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I've been misgendering puppy play lady.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for that astute observation. Oh, dear.
She may very well be the first Doreen in the universe, judging by the chronology.
Yeah. I don't think
if
Doreen
your name
was
is Doreen, you're named after puppy play.
I don't think Doreen was a very popular human name in 4462 BC.
So... When did we have dogs? Is she pre-puppies? If she puppy played before puppies?
I feel like we must have had dogs by now, but let me check.
I don't know if we had dogs on Akhaten.
Oh yeah, no, this is according to Google AI, It's like more than 30,000 years ago. So
okay.
It's okay. We're not culturally appropriating Doreen by owning dogs.
Well, I thought that maybe she taught the dogs.
Oh.
Have you seen dogs
she taught
yet?
Like how to be puppies.
So we haven't seen dogs yet. We've seen K9.
So K9 is the first dog.
K9 is the first dog. And then also, a couple episodes ago, we talked about Tom Baker, who had to bang his tooth on the TARDIS console because in real life, he got attacked by a dog that he was trying to pet. And so they had to justify his lip scar.
So we don't have any evidence before this that dogs bark before Doreen.
True.
Doreen taught him how to bark. I mean, I've never seen K9 bark.
No, I don't think he ever barks. And the whole... I mean...
K9 invented dogs, but Doreen made them fun.
Side note, I would love I would love for any episode of anything to just feature K9 just going, "Arf, arf, mistress," or something. Just like...
I've heard someone say that before, but it was not a robot dog.
Hey, I really think K9 would go for a bow wow.
Yeah. Just a little one, though. Just a little bow wow. This is something that I have not been doing with a lot of our guests that I've been meaning to do. Kevin, how did you first get into Doctor Who? What was your fandom introduction like?
So I'm so proud of this because I got introduced in what I think most would agree was the best possible point of the show. It was around 2006, I think December. Sci-Fi was doing its first run of airings of the new series 1 and 2, because it didn't air it in 2005. They were just finally getting over here.
Was it still Sci-Fi or was it Sci-Fi at this point?
I think it was Sci-Fi, yes.
I remember the whole change of it going from the Sci-Fi to SYFY.
But my dad's all like, "Come in, this is my favorite show when I was a kid, you should see this." And he ushers me and my sister in, and we sit down on the couch and watch just a couple minutes of a show that will change my life forever. What I see is this blonde man talking to a webcam, and some very, very strange aliens. I was introduced in the closing minutes, the universally beloved closing minutes, regarded as the highlight of a fan-favorite episode of Love and Monsters.
Incredible. Incredible. Even more beloved, I would say, than Daleks in Manhattan. Love and Monsters is certainly a fan favorite.
I got such a good grasp on the show from that when I then went back from there to watch from Rose onward, I did not realize that was a different guy. I thought that was the same guy, the same doctor. So when I got to the end of that series with Rose and he changed, I was like, no he didn't. I just saw him in that other one.
Oh my gosh. I really like that. It's also it's probably, I don't know, I think there's something to be said for starting with a Dr. Light episode because people are always like, watch Blink first. And I don't know if that's a good idea, but that is interesting to that your actual first episode was a very Dr. Light episode.
To be clear, cool. I had to be talked into watching more.
Fair.
No, really, it's good. You'll like it.
Is it just this guy dancing around in his underwear to Electric Light Orchestra?
No, see, if it was that, I would have been grabbed. I was a little gay boy still figuring that out. That would have grabbed me.
Yeah. I'm sorry I forgot that you were gay for a second. Please don't hold that against me. I do have a something to share from BlueSky. Jeff Richardson, who is at eljefetacoma.bsky.social, who I assume is the same El Jefe Tacoma who wrote the review that I talked about last time, wrote, I'm almost... Wait, does that mean that this person is your dad, Mandy? We talked about.
I have no reason to think not so, but my dad used to have a Tacoma.
Great.
And he could be described as Anne Hefe.
Anne Hefe. Not to be confused with Anne Hathaway, who is Mandy's mom. Anyway, Jeff writes, I'm almost caught up with the correct Stitches in Time order. I'm so excited. If y'all want to see Doctor Who the way it was meant to be seen before the BBC execs chose to defy God, listen to Who Stitched and go to stitchesintie.me for the real straight dope. So thank you for your proselytization of our project. And
thank you. I know that you can't be my father because my father has never supported me in this way.
Now, I do unfortunately have to say that while that is a glowing endorsement for y'all, God is now dead. We just saw Clara kill him.
True. Yeah.
So the BBC can defy whatever they want.
Oh, there's a whole pantheon of gods that we're gonna watch die, I'm sure. I don't know, I was thinking about, like, the Satan Pit. I know we've got the Time Monster coming up fairly soon. You know, the Aztecs is definitely one that I was thinking about a lot when we were talking about human sacrifice this episode.
So there'll be a new god along in about 5 minutes or so.
Yeah. There's always... There's plenty of gods to go around. Kevin, if people wanted to find you and or your work on the internet or in the world, how would they go about doing that, I wonder?
Well, as far as Doctor Who stuff goes, and I'll stick to that for the most part right now, my main thoughts on just TV shows generally, but especially Doctor Who, can be found on BlueSky at ScribbleScript. That's ScribbleScript. No. SSCRIPT. God damn, I cannot spell. You'll figure it out. It out.
So it's Scribbles plural. Scribbles
yes,
script.
Plural. Well,
okay, great.
I can word.
What are you, a writer
also,
or
if
something?
you want to read something about as deranged as the conversation we've had, you can find my short story, You Are the Absurd Hero, for the Faction Paradox Anthology, The Boulevard, Volume 1. In which case, I made you, yes you, a canon Doctor Who character who has been captured in a timey-wimey prison.
Amazing.
I mean, I've done enough crimes to know that that's probably for the best.
And if let me double check what day this is dropping. This is dropping on the 26th, so I can say things like, if you would like to see my award-winning one-woman musical Asexuality, I am performing it on April 3rd at the Broadwater in Los Angeles. You can get tickets at joywholived.com because it's part of the Joy Who Lived Festival, because that fucking Harry Potter play is playing at the Pantages for 6 weeks, and god damn it, that woman already has too much money. So come check that out. Also, if you're not in LA, you can still watch it because it's going to be live streamed. So you can get a ticket and watch it on demand for the whole month of April, I'm told.
Becca, your play is very good. Everyone should see it. And also give Becca obscene amounts of money so that she can go unhinged. And you can pick a place to be abusive with your wealth with.
Yeah. I'm going to pick a random group of people that I in no way am part of or know anybody who's a part of, and just tear them to shreds once I hit $1 billion. So
I nominate the French.
I would. Sadly, and I really hate to admit this on the podcast, but I am like a small fraction French. So.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's why you always keep bringing that guillotine.
I'm French only in the sense that I want to execute the elite, which is going to be a problem for me when I hit $1 billion. But, that's why I'm in theater, so that I don't make too much money. There's no risk of me being beheaded. Amazing. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. You're a delightful human being. And we'd love to have you on again sometime.
I would love that.
Great. And listeners, please join us next time when... it's literally the next episode is when we're talking about the Time Monster. So get ready for some more gods to do stuff around. Kevin, make noise so that the YouTube audience can see that motion.
I'm doing a Flappy Birdie thing with my hands, just sort of like really, really floppily and less usefully. But that's my main thought of the Time Monster. There's a flappy chicken person. It's wonderful.
It's very good. All right. Bye for now, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Stitches in Time. Music by Becca McGlynn. Art by Mandy Oquendo. Logo by Ben Paddon. Produced by Becca McGlynn and Ben Paddon. Check us out on socials at Who Stitched.
I have been enjoying all of reading about all of the drama from LA Leather specifically.
Oh my god, it has been so much.
As someone who's like not in any way involved, of like, oh, I love this. I love hearing about this.
That organization just lit itself on fire. It's incredible.
Oh my god. What? I don't know anything about anything.
Go on Kevin's Facebook and just read through. Okay. Get yourself a White Claw and just enjoy.
or go to my friend Jackson's Instagram or Facebook and just go through all that, because he's been right at the center of this for about a year. By daring to be a trans man who still has some cleavage, asking people, hey, is it okay if I show some of this? Them saying, yeah, and then them changing their mind afterwards.
How dare you present your gender the way that feels authentic to you? I just don't understand why.
But basically the entire LA community and neighboring cities have all united in saying, fuck these people.
Nice.
And it has resulted in the nuking of a decades-old organization.
Yeah. Incredible.
What's happening? Why is it angry?
This isn't an it. It's a she. Doreen. Meet Clara. Clara, meet Doreen.
Doreen?
Loose translation. She sounds a bit grumpy, but she's a total love, actually, aren't you? Yes, you are.
Okay, I see.
And you notice we are all slow and dumb, but it's actually it's Zoom that's slow and dumb. Sometimes it's also Mandy is slow and dumb.
To quote an Oscar-winning musical, I see.
Why?
I was on shrooms watching the Oscars and then just live texting it to Becca whenever Amelia Perez won anything, because you were doing a show. Which was so funny because
I was doing my solo show that night and I was like in the green room like the hour before my show and Mandy's just texting me.
And it's just the ominous Becca, I have terrible news.
I did like the please show people what a good musical looks like.
Speaking of.
This episode.
I mean, good might be.
Once again proving why we don't ask for a Doctor Who musical.
Look, if I do feel like this is the inaugural musical episode of Doctor Who, but we'll get there. All right. Let's start the podcast and then we will. All right. Here we go. Mandy, are you prepared?
I am so prepared. I wrote it down.
Oh my gosh.
That's what's used for currency here, psychometry. Objects psychically imprinted with their history. The more treasured they are, the more value they hold.
That's horrible.
It's better than using bits of paper.
I was a choir kid. I'm going to put it out there. I was a choir kid. Unlike every other choir kid, I was not molested. But I still turned out queer, so who knows? I'm going to cut that shit out. Holy shit. I don't know where that came from. Anyway, damaging to the queer community.
We're allowed to damage ourselves a little as a treat.
Different trauma made me queer.
You're going to fight it, aren't you?
Regrettably, yes. I think I may be about to do that.
It's really big.
I've seen bigger.
Really?
Are you joking? It's massive.
I have a plane coming, so give me a second while I fucking
I
go
don't
on
know
this
what
insane tangent
it
that
is
I'm
about
to go
planes that turns us all into James Kirk in the way that we need to kind of talk like this while the plane is happening.
That's just that's a little affect that I put on to as a note to myself later to edit this part out.
See, I was just picturing, that scene in Partners in Crime when the Doctor and Donna are just like
mouthing at each other. Yeah.
There's quite a difference, isn't there, between what was and what should have been. There's an awful lot of one, but there's an infinity of the other.
There's plenty of gods to go around. One god for every, 2 gods for every boy. Sorry, okay.
2 gods for every boy. And girls get nothing.
I know. It's such a problem.
God is stored in the balls, is what I'm hearing.
So that's why there's 2.
One of your balls is good, and one of your balls is evil. One of your balls only tells the truth, and one of your balls always lies. Oh my gosh!
Why am I laughing? Why am I
don't
laughing?
know. We've been talking so long that we've all of us have just fallen apart, and that is honestly the goal of this podcast.
Help!